The teeny tiny silicone packers can be worn by children who identify or express themselves as male to give the appearance of a bulge. They come in a variety of colors and are targeted at kids aged 5 to 8. The items classified as extra small are among a number of children's products related to gender expression available on
Okay. So, hello everybody. Today we are going to be going over Sydney Watson. This is another conservative I used to look up to. It's pretty sad to see all these people go down this route, or they were going down the route. It's just sad to see that that's who these really people are. They're just insane. They're unhinged. I mean, like, in this case, I guess I can understand why she thinks this is weird. But, I'll give my opinion on this first. Is this baby penis thing weird? Yeah. But is it unethical? I wouldn't say so. It's a good compromise between not doing anything at all and then also, having kids go through a gender reassignment surgery, which I think everybody agrees is a terrible idea for obvious reasons. But yeah, I think this is a good compromise. Let's see what she has to say. And I just want to note, by the way, I skipped a minute and 52 in because she had a sponsor and there's nothing to really talk about with that. Okay, so let's go.
So I'm just gonna go through some rocks that single dads. So in the last few days, a tweet started doing the rounds that read, "A knitted penis for extremely small girls to wear in their pants if their parents believe them to be transgender."
There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's weird, sure. It's a little bit awkward, yeah. But if it helps, you know?
It is intended for girls so young, they demonstrate the product in a diaper. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is one of those kind of videos. Just to
Oh yes, it is one of those kinds of videos. Just like basically every other video where you say dumb stuff.
Explain a little bit, what we're talking about here are things called packers, which are something that transgender individuals can put into their underwear to simulate having the anatomy or the genitalia of their choosing. This is usually to alleviate anxiety or gender dysphoria. Sometimes they can pee through them. Usually they are made of silicone. Usually they're for
silicone. Fucking Aussies.
Adults. So there you go. There's a big world out there and we haven't even scratched the surface. So this tweet is accompanied by a couple screenshots of the product because these are obviously very realistic colors and shapes of man pickles. There is also a photo of children's underwear, I suppose, to give the example of how these knitted Pen 15s will look when attached. So not quite a diaper as the original tweet says, but certainly underwear designed for children, which weirds me out a little. I'm not gonna lie. On the website, you can see how big the knitted items are in relation to the size of a chapstick. And the website also says that Bitty Bug Soft Packer is a custom prosthetic packer in sizes appropriate for children, made from soft, durable yarn and polyester filling. It is easy to wear pinned to undies or tucked into a packing pouch. Silicone prosthetics do not come in sizes appropriate for kiddos. The Bitty Bug Soft Packer is lightweight, comfortable, low maintenance, and can be tossed in the washing machine. Adorable and functional. Friend, I don't know if the purpose of pretend penises is to be adorable.
I mean, one second, 342. That's a little bit cute. Okay, let's just go back to the thing.
Be tossed in the washing machine. Adorable and functional. Friend, I don't know if the purpose of pretend penises is to be adorable. Have you seen a penis? They look like sad firefighters.
I take offense to that. Not really. She's kind of right.
And I mean, yeah, color me crazy, but prosthetic penises don't come in sizes appropriate for kiddos.
I mean, we just saw sizes that come appropriate for kiddos.
Because I'm pretty sure they're not appropriate for kiddos.
They're not appropriate for kiddos, but they're appropriate for trans kiddos.
Anyway, so naturally this tweet and the story surrounding it upset a lot of people for a multitude of reasons.
Conservatives.
And because the images were shared so widely, the manufacturer responded, "I'm the maker. I make soft packers for trans and non-binary people who find a prosthetic reduces dysphoria."
Good for you. good for you. That's good on you, Stitchbug Studio.
Some parents of trans kids requested a smaller size for their kids who are experiencing crippling dysphoria. No, I don't deal with kids. That would be inappropriate. You don't say. I'm extremely honored to know that there are finally some trans kids growing up in households where they are loved and supported, instead of abused, abandoned, violated, and hated. You all want to protect kids? Stop being violent transphobes.
True!
Stop fearing what you don't understand and learn.
True!
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. You caught us.
Yeah, you weren't learning. As we will show you later on, not we, I'm alone here, so as I will show you later on in this video.
There is so much to unpack here, pun not intended.
Funny joke.
And also, why is it that when people like you and me and whoever display concern for children and the things that are happening to them, we're called transphobes?
Because you're an idiot who denies the facts, the data, the statistics. That's why we call you transphobes, because you're bigots, you are idiots. You are arguing with your feelings when you talk about this shit. That's why we call you transphobic. That's why we call you hateful. Because you are hateful.
I also want to know why these people concern themselves so much with the genitals of pudding people.
Probably to help them transition. Ever consider that? No? I wonder why you're so obsessed with children. Probably doesn't have to do with the conservatives' extensive history on pedophilia and rape and child abuse and shit. Maybe doesn't have anything to do with that, does it?
Why do you do this? Why is this? So the creator makes it very clear on the website that these items will be made for any trans person or parent of a trans person, no questions asked. There are also several different sizes that can be purchased, as well as face masks. The website definitely makes it clear that these items are—
Wait, where's the face masks? Maybe it's on the website, but I'm not sure that's a face mask.
okay for children and teens. If you've been here a minute, you'll know that I have a really hard time with adults pushing adult discussions on
Gender ideology is not an adult discussion. Shut the actual hell up.
To children. And I also have a really hard time with parents pushing gender ideology and gender theory onto their tiny humans.
Nearly nobody is pushing gender ideology or transgenderism onto anybody. All conservatives have when it comes to that kind of talking point is anecdotal evidence. As we will see, she provides no data about this stuff, just a couple of examples. Oh my gosh.
And based on the images and sizes here, we're not talking about adults or teenagers. We're talking about little children who are probably not old enough to be questioning anything. We're talking about kids who eat dirt because it looks like chocolate. The point is, tiny pudding people, for the most part, do not have any concept of their anatomy or what it is or what it means.
Literally wrong, as I will show right here. There's my Twitter. When do children develop their gender identity? A child begins to have an innate sense of their gender identity between the ages 3 to 5. This is written by the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, aka CHOP. And also somebody named Linda Hawkins with credentials to speak on this topic. Then we also have another source, which goes a little bit more in depth, from healthychildren.org. How does gender identity develop in children? Gender identity develops typically in 2 stages. Around age of 2, children become conscious of the physical differences between boys and girls. Before the 3rd birthday, they can easily label themselves as a boy or girl. By age 4, most children have a stable sense of their gender identity. And then it gives things parents can do to help their children with their gender identity. The point is, children are smart enough to learn about this stuff. A lot of creatures on this planet learn a lot of these kinds of these things that are pretty complex when you think about it at a younger age. So just because they eat sand and shit or whatever doesn't mean they can't comprehend their gender identity at a young age, because it seems to be almost universally agreed upon by academia, scientists, psychiatrists that they can.
So, given the ages of the children in question, I would argue that this is entirely parent-driven. And that bothers
Wrong.
me a lot. And what's funny is that this has happened before. Back in late 2017, a few news outlets jumped on a story of a mum of a gender non-conforming child who was selling extra small penises for transgender children under the age of 5. I honestly hate this timeline.
Oh boy, I wonder why.
I don't understand how we got here. These are not words I want to put together in a sentence.
Too bad. Gotta go with the flow. Society's making progress while you're still stuck in the 40s, Sydney.
Why is the world the way that it is?
Because science.
I feel like I'm having an existential crisis.
No, you just have your head too far shoved up your ass to be able to realize how wrong you are.
Why are you the way that you are? Honestly, every time I try to do something fun or exciting, you make it not that way.
I mean, that's literally how leftists are to conservatives. This and
Something fun or
this should be reversed because the leftists are the ones trying new, different things, which are also backed up by facts and logic, while conservatives are the ones that are trying to keep you from doing the fun stuff, trying to keep you from finding the truth. Like, I don't know why she used this clip because it's completely opposite from what she's kind of represented as with these little captions there.
exciting. You
I'm 98% sure that YouTube will lose its mind, but I provided you with some of my drawings to help illustrate instead. The teeny tiny silicone packers can
Okay,
be
that's
worn by
funny.
children who
That's kind of cute.
identify or express themselves as male to give the appearance of a bulge. They come in a variety of colors and are targeted at kids aged 5 to 8.
That's kind of cute. You should probably take up art instead of political commentary, social commentary. You'd probably be a lot better drawing little animals out of baby penises than talking about trans issues.
The items classified as extra small are among a number of children's products related to gender expression available on the website transkids.biz. I am way too old for this.
Yes, you are.
Way too old for this kind of thing. I remember the days when children were put in cages outside, attached to their houses, so they could get some fresh air. Your parents weren't even alive when that was happening. Simpler times. Easier times.
Oh yeah, the conservatives love the simpler and easy times because the simpler and easy times didn't require critical thinking. It didn't require actually using your brain. You just heard something and went with it. Simpler times, easier times. Shit that you really want to bring back.
So being that I hate happiness and am in fact the overlord of hell, I decided it was necessary to go to this website and found that all the offending products in question have been removed. Now they just have mostly books with some amazing titles such as My Dad Thinks I'm a Boy and A Quick and Easy Guide to They Them Pronoun.
I don't see anything wrong with that. Neither of these books have anything really wrong with them. Do they? Do they? No, they don't.
Wow, that's very cool, very good stuff. There's also
Yeah,
this very confusing message here where they effectively say that if you send them hate, then they'll send it to the authorities. But for every harassing email, they'll donate to a trans-serving organization that helps trans people thrive. So thank you. So do you not want the hate mail, or do you want the hate mail? I need more information. There's
Mixed vibes there.
also another website I found that's still up and running where you can get prosthetics for kids
Jeez
age 3 and
Louise.
up. Although I didn't find that
This website looks like it's from the late 2000s. Oh my gosh. Update your website. Den Kirkwood Tucker. Update your website.
specific wording on the site itself, but in an article I was reading about the site. The owner of this specific site said in a 2015 interview that they expanded the kids line in the last year because of the growing demand in Australia and New Zealand, being the largest international customer base. Why
Poggers.
Am I not even surprised? Australia, this is what happens when you don't let me become your supreme overlord. Now go to your room.
Ah, yes. Don't let me become your supreme overlord. Or do let me become your supreme overlord. Fascism. Authoritarianism. Possibly monarchy. I don't think she's a monarch or a authoritarian. Well, I think she's an authoritarian, but I don't think she's a monarchist or anything. That was a joke. That was a joke.
Also, can we just talk for a second about how bad this website is? Like, your business has expanded that much that you can't even afford to make this look better.
Yeah, I gotta agree with her on that. This looks horrible.
You have all that sweet silicon dollars to throw around. Why does it look like this? Now, for the
I agree.
most part, if you are an adult, I don't really care what you do or what you buy.
Doubt.
If you feel the need and it's gonna make you feel better to go out and buy a silicon yogurt rifle, go on your merry way.
But she still won't call you by your pronouns because that hurts her feelings, most likely.
Provided that it does not affect me and I don't have to pay for it.
Oh, there it is. Provided that it does not affect me, I don't want to call you by your pronouns because that's too much of an inconvenience for my lazy ass.
It or you. As per usual, my main concern is and probably will always be about children.
Conservatives love children. Oh boy, I wonder why.
I've talked on this channel before several times about the effects of forcing gender ideology onto children and how parents take an active role in forcing this onto their offspring and how they
No, they don't. For the most part, like in 99% of cases, they don't.
feel about their anatomy, their bodies, and who they are generally as people. And while I definitely acknowledge that there are children who will experience gender dysphoria and who will...
Yeah, I doubt she believes that, honestly. Either that or she believes it's like 0.1% of children.
Ultimately go on to transition or at least broach the idea of transitioning. I think that it's safe to say that the majority of children will not fall into this boat, will not be in this category.
I mean, that's true. The overwhelming majority of the population in general is not trans, but those who do identify as trans, for the most part, stay trans. Detransitioning overall, including in kids, by the way, is very rare.
And therefore a lot of this is being artificially forced on them for no good reason.
No, it's not.
There's no necessity here, which is being correlated to the explosion of children either identifying as trans or starting on the road towards ultimately transitioning.
Oh boy, I wonder if that has to do with the rise in LGBT acceptance that's going on. It's definitely because parents are forcing gender ideology onto their kids, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that everybody's starting to become more comfortable with trans people, except conservatives, of course. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Just ignore everything that's going on and just continue to tell yourself, it's the parents, it's the liberals, it is the cultural Marxism that are being pushed onto the children who are trying to make them trans. Oh my gosh, cultural Marxism, you know what I'm saying? Liberal ideology, gender ideology.
Trans activists often argue that the reason for these packers and other items for small children is to alleviate their anxiety and discomfort.
True.
They also often point to the suicide rates of transgender youth, which is somewhere in the realm of 45%.
Suicide attempt rate. That's a pretty... I'm not sure if she's doing that in bad faith or she actually does not know the difference between a suicide rate and the suicide attempt rate. Because it's not... The suicide rate is not 45%. The suicide attempt rate is 41%, so she got it kind of close, but that's kind of a dishonest way of framing the situation by painting it as that 41% of people are actually committing suicide when that's not the case.
And be that as it may, there is still a growing portion of people who claim that they were almost convinced into transitioning as children.
Growing portion of people. I want you to notice, by the way, she does not provide a source for any of this. I'm going to scroll down here. She does not provide a source for this at all regarding the growing portion of people who are detransitioning and coming out as people who had gender ideology forced onto them as a child. All she could provide is anecdotes. All she could provide are individual stories, not statistics, because the statistics do not agree with her, as I will show in a little bit.
Take Voltaire, for example.
There you go. One single dude is enough to prove that the majority of trans kids are detransitioning because gender ideology is being forced onto them.
Talked about him on this channel before. He spent 8 years living as a transgender woman and ultimately transitioned back to his biological sex. When referring to the documentary Transhood, he says, "I marvel at how the events of my childhood groomed me into believing that identifying as the opposite sex was the solution to my gender confusion." In this particular article, he refers to the fact that dressing as a girl was effectively pushed on him by his grandmother at the age of 4.
No, I just want to tell you, by the way, nobody's denying that this happens, and when this does happen, it sucks. I agree. But to paint this out as if it's even close to like a sizable chunk of trans kids in general is extremely dishonest and really bad faith, because either they are ignoring the statistics that prove otherwise, or they just don't believe in it like usual. They don't believe the facts or the logic.
And this is where the majority of his gender issues started.
Yeah, we're skipping this. I don't really care.
Transitioning children is
Prefers she and her pronouns.
Walt goes on to add that transitioning children is child abuse, and he cites a few reasons why.
Transitioning children is child abuse? No, it's not.
One that I found the most compelling is that doctors don't actually know which children should transition. Christina Olson, a research psychologist at the University of Washington, puts it this way: "We just don't have definitive data one way or another."
Yes, we do, and I'm going to show you a few studies which show that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to show you, by the way, this whole article. I'm going to show you more context to this article that she cited. She left it linked in her video, so this was a big flaw, because let's take a look. Let's take a look at this article real quick. We don't have definitive data one way or another. Let's see. So she's studying 300 trans kids from USA to Canada and tracking them over the next 2 decades. This this long study started in about 2013, I believe, and we're gonna see that on her Wikipedia page. But let's take a look. Let's take a look at how it's going so far. More recently, however, Olson's research has shown children who are allowed to transition socially are no more depressed and only marginally more anxious than other children, according to data collected from the first 3 years of her study. The kids in our study seem to be doing quite well, Olson said, which is particularly surprising because past work with transgender teens and adults, as well as previous work with gender nonconforming kids, has suggested that these kids have very high rates of anxiety and depression. So far, it's disagreeing with Sydney with her narrative about trans kids not being trans at all and detransitioning and stuff. Let's take a look at her Wikipedia page too, by the way, which I found. It's called the Trans Youth Project, by the way, and it looks like it's over 350 children actually. But let's see what it has to say. Recent findings from this project indicate that transgender children are not confused, delayed, pretending, or oppositional with regards to their gender identity. So, let's actually take a look at their website real quick. University of Washington, where this is happening. Let's take a look. Yeah, change their pronouns, blah, 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 blah. Children who identify as the gender matching their sex at birth tend to gravitate toward the toys, clothing, and friendships stereotypically associated with that gender. Let's take a little bit more of a look around here. You can read. I'll link this, by the way, in the description when I edit it. When asked to identify their gender, an equivalent percentage of cisgender and transgender children, 83 and 84% respectively, named their current gender. Okay, anyways, this is the article for it, written 2 years later from this article, by the way. This was written in 2017, published May 18th, 2017. Let's take a look at a couple other studies, shall we? Trajectories of adolescents treated with gonadotrophin releasing hormone analogs for gender dysphoria, which is basically like puberty blockers. We'll just read this abstract real quick because I don't really I'll leave the study in the description below so you can check out the methodology and stuff. But let's see. Treatment was considered appropriate in 143 of 214 adolescents. Now let's see the results. few individuals discontinued GnRHA, and only 3.5% no longer wish gender-affirming treatment. That is a very small percentage. That is not a growing portion, like she claimed. Let's take a look at another longitude study from Amsterdam, which lasted from 1972 to 2015. This takes into account transgender adults as well, by the way. Let's take a look at the detransition rate overall. Results. They surveyed 6,793 people who visited their gender identity clinic from 1972 to 2015. Only 0.6% of trans women and 0.3% of trans men who underwent gonadectomy were identified as experiencing regret. Let's see here. Let's go down here and talk about the adolescents real quick. Of adolescents, 41% started puberty suppression, whereas only 1.9% of those adolescents stopped PS and did not start HT, hormone therapy, I believe it's called. Anyways, let's take a look at the statistics here. 41%, 1.9%. We're looking at the total right here, by the way. This would be around 332 adolescents. I already did the calculations. Out of 812, 41% is about 332. And 1.9%, let's take a look at that real quick. I'm going to bring up a calculator right there. Awesome. Let's see. 332 times 0.019. 6 people out of 332, 6 adolescents out of 332 adolescents decided not to do puberty suppression anymore. There's some more proof that children do not tend to detransition very often. Here's another study which shows similarities in transgender and cisgender children's gender development. Let's read this over. First, transgender children strongly identify as members of their current gender group and show gender-typed preferences and behaviors that are strongly associated with their current gender, not the gender typically associated with their sex at birth. Second, transgender children's gender identity, i.e. the gender they feel they are, and gender-type preferences generally do not differ from the two comparison groups, cisgender siblings and cisgender controls. Third, transgender and cisgender children patterns of gender development show coherence across measures. Finally, we observed minimal or no differences in gender identity or preferences as a function of how long transgender children have lived as their current gender. So there's some more proof that transgender kids who identify as trans are actually trans. Let's take a look at another one, shall we? Transgender brains are more like their desired gender from an early age, which we actually do have studies about. The male and female brains have two different structures, and those with transgender brains have structures similar that are more structured similarly to to the gender they identify as. So like a biological male has the brain structure to that of a biological female, basically. So there's some more proof, and then let's take a look at one last article, shall we? Most gender dysphoria established by age 7 study finds. The study findings reveal that 73% of transgender women and 78% of transgender men first experience gender dysphoria by age 7. Children, there are such things as transgender children, Sydney, and there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them that do not detransition. She provides no proof for this claim. We do have definitive data, one way or another. Like, it's hard to tell whether this is just bad faith and she's actually just being, or if she's actually this retarded. Anyways, let's finish the video because I went on a little bit long of a tangent there, destroying her with facts and knowledge.
That's why she's leading a study of 300 trans kids that will track outcomes over 20 years to be able to hopefully answer which children should and should not transition, she said.
I mean, like I said already, we do have ways we can test that with brain scans and shit, which show the structures of different brains. Too bad. It probably costs a lot of money to do that. Maybe if we had a system like single payer, it would be a lot easier to tell which children are trans or not. But that's a whole other tangent for a whole other time.
So I guess as of right now, nobody really knows.
We do.
Nobody knows anything about anything.
No, conservatives don't know anything about anything. We, leftists, know something about something. Conservatives do not. And she makes that very clear throughout this entire video.
You realize this more and more as you get older. And
as you get older, you become more and more conservative, which is why the majority of old people these days are fucking brain dead.
slowly but surely, your faith in other people starts to wither and die.
Faith in conservatives.
Do you need a hug? I need Scotty. And a beam. And a lot of liquor. What?
What's a Scotty or a beam? That's probably some Aussie shit.
Walt also references the landmark case where a young woman named Kira Bell, who was formerly a transgender man, sued the UK's only gender identity development service for children, saying that she was treated like a guinea pig and doctors failed to carry out a proper psychiatric assessment and should have challenged her more over her decision to transition as a teen.
Yeah, that sucks. We're not denying that bad doctors are out there who are lazy as fuck and will just assign a gender to you because you say that. Nobody's denying this stuff happens, but it's so few and far between, and choosing these examples to try to claim this is a majority of cases is a combination of being retarded and also being super bad faith.
You know, just realizing how traumatic the experience was and how deceitful I feel that the clinicians were during my care. So yeah, it was heartbreaking. Medical transition doesn't have to be the way for you. You know, you can come out of this the other end.
In this particular case, the High Court went on to rule that children under the age of 16 are unlikely to be able to give informed consent to puberty blockers.
Okay, so we're letting the law dictate what is good or bad now, what's right and wrong. I'm not sure what kind of point she's making here. If that's what she's saying, let's go under the assumption that she's saying since the High Court says it, it must be true. If the High Court says abortion is okay and should be legalized, are you pro-choice now? There are some massive inconsistencies in conservative logic with regards to whether the law dictates what is right and wrong these days.
Which I think falls more or less in line with the standards that we have for other areas, like law, for example, where we try to determine and distinguish at what age children can determine right from wrong. And depending on the
I mean, we do have
state that you're in,
scientific data and shit to back that up about when they develop a conscience and all that stuff. We do have ideas of when that happens and stuff. We do have not statistics, but studies in science showing that stuff, and that's where
this can be anywhere from 7 to 15 years old, but ultimately we cannot definitively pin that down. And this is why so many critics of children transitioning argue that children are still developing cognitively and psychologically.
It really depends on what area they're developing, though. Like I showed before, in some areas they are pretty mentally developed at an early age, such as their gender identity, but in other areas it takes a while for them to mature, such as the age of consent for having sex or drinking liquor or driving and all that shit. It really depends on what we are talking about. In the majority of cases, yeah, they're probably not developed enough to make some choices, but when it comes to something like your gender identity, something which you can switch without having to make irreversible decisions, such as gender reassignment surgery at a young age, like, why not? You know, there's nothing necessarily wrong with at least trying with these little fake baby penises and shit.
But besides all of that, it kind of makes me mad that when we argue that children should be better protected, we get name called.
What? You're not arguing they should be better protected. You're arguing for not helping them. You are arguing for taking away treatment which actually works, by the way. You're arguing for taking away treatment for trans kids and just telling them, hey, you're not the gender you identify with. You're not the gender you identify with. And just repeat that over and over and over and discriminate against them over and over and over until they get depressed and try to commit suicide. That's why the suicide attempt rate is so high? Because of people like this who just continue to deny the science and continue to deny giving trans children the treatment they need in order to be better. You don't want to like, I'm not sure if she has good intentions or not, but under the idea that she is, let's go with the idea that she is for a second. She needs to learn to start trusting in studies, start trusting in science, and change her attitude before it starts hurting a lot more people.
Much of what I've read on this topic argues that these ideas are implanted in kids' heads.
What? What stuff have you read?
Pushed on them from such an early age, and then parents...
You're gonna definitely show us this, right? You're gonna show us what you've read?
Parents get to parade their kids around when they think that their kid is atypical.
Are you gonna show us?
I will reiterate...
She doesn't show us. She doesn't show us what she read, which heavily implies that parents are forcing this on the kids. She doesn't show you because it's not there. It doesn't exist. She's pulling this out of her ass.
Right here too that I am sure there are children out there who are genuinely suffering from gender dysphoria.
Heavily doubt that.
And I do hope that they get the help and support that they need.
No, you don't.
But the vast majority of kids will not and do not. And
yeah, we know that already. The vast majority of the population doesn't identify as trans, you fucking numbskull. Like, you're not saying anything new here. But when those people who do identify as trans end up identifying as trans, there is a very high there's a very high chance that they are actually trans.
Pushing gender ideology onto them, especially when it comes to parents or the education system doing it, is completely reckless.
No, it's not! What are you talking about? It's completely reckless. Let me show you this one example of someone detransitioning to prove that this is reckless, and we should not help children who identify as trans. All we should do is tell them, hey, you're not a woman, you're not a girl, you're a boy. You see those genitals you were born with? That's what you're stuck with forever. You can't change that. Like, these people don't want to help kids. Letting them discover who they are at a young age so they can get help as soon as possible and be able to transition when they grow up more easily is the best way to help kids. Conservatives are reckless in how they spread this fake, false information. This video is reckless. My video is not.
And I don't know, not to mention the fact that putting fake penises in your kids' underwear is super ethically questionable.
Why? Like, I don't really see why. Is it because you think it's creepy? If you think it's creepy, why? Like, if it helps kids with their gender dysphoria, then that's a good thing. I can make the same argument for your obsession with children, helping protecting them kind of thing. I can make that argument with a lot of conservative beliefs, now that I think about it.
And very abnormal.
Well, yeah. A lot of things are abnormal, you know? The idea of abolishing slavery used to be abnormal. The idea of equal rights used to be abnormal. A lot of things that we all believe in right now used to be abnormal. But we had to fight to normalize it. Because that's just the right thing to do. And there's no denying that. The right thing to do is saying that this stuff actually helps and give these fake baby peepees to children to help them with their gender dysphoria. That's the right thing to do. That's not ethically questionable. Something that is ethically questionable is not providing treatment to trans children, like this bitch wants to not do.
Needless to say, I am doing my best to keep my criticism here PG for the old YouTube.
I'm not.
But I'm not impressed, and I genuinely, sincerely believe that there are better ways to support children than implanting the idea that they should feel uncomfortable in their own skin.
Like what? Like what? They're just telling them that they're not what they say they are over and over, telling them that they are not what they identify as over and over. Is that really the best treatment these people can come up with? I want you to notice, she never says what other kinds of treatments there are, probably because she doesn't know, because she's an ignorant bitch. But, what other ways are there? The only other way that's been proposed by conservatives is, you're not trans, you're not trans, you're not trans, just screaming at them. Well, not literally screaming, but figuratively speaking, screaming that at people at trans people over and over and over and over again. That's their solution. And guess what? That does not work. It just increases suicide attempt rates.
Which I would argue is happening in the majority of cases. And at the end of the day, like I said...
Which you would argue is happening in the majority of the cases, by the way. Which you will not prove besides just, like, 3 stories of people detransitioning. That's the proof that it's happening in the majority of the cases. Because I just showed it's not. Like, conservatives always run on antidotes because none of the actual data agrees with them. None of the actual facts agrees with them. So they cherry pick examples and then use that to generalize the entire situation. It's extremely bad faith in either rooted in ignorance or hate or both.
I don't really care what adults do, but when it comes to
I think you do.
children, we should really be stepping up our game to protect them.
We are! That's why we want to give them, like, puberty blockers. That's why we should start using these Packers to help them with socially transitioning. We want to help them. You do not. Like, here's the thing. Like, I just noticed, right? Not just noticed, but just bringing it up at the end of the video. Conservatives complain a lot about these issues, but they provide no solutions. All they say is, this isn't the right way to do it. This isn't the right way to do it, but I don't know how to do it. We will never know. Like, dude, come on. We know what we're doing. You don't. You provide no solutions. Conservatives never provide solutions to these situations. At most, they'll provide, like, barely a solution or apply a band-aid to a really bad issue, like a systemic issue. But, yeah, like, come on, man. Seriously.
Given that, coincidentally, they happen to be the most vulnerable and innocent in our society.
Yeah, and you're trying to corrupt them. Trying to, not purposefully at least, but trying to corrupt them with conservatism. Trying to indoctrinate them into your fucking death cult of conservatism. The Republican Party, all this shit. Like, you see what PragerU has been doing recently with their new little children's program, trying to make Ronald Reagan look like some sort of demigod that children should idolize and shit. Like, conservatives are literally pushing indoctrination on the kids. They do not care about their innocence. They care about preserving conservatism as long as possible. Because they're fucking sociopaths at the end of the day. They really are. And you see that through their talking points.
Now, before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder that you can download Your Mom Surfshark.
I do not care about Surfshark. I don't even know what that is. I think it's a VPN or something like that. But as you can see right down here, I use NordVPN. Anyways, that's it for this video. Whether or not Sydney is ignorant, whether or not she's a bigot, whether or not she's hateful, or if it's a combination of all three, I think we can all agree that the rhetoric she is spewing is toxic, it's dangerous, and it's going to hurt a lot of kids in the long run. It's going to hurt a lot of trans kids in the long run. Because these people don't care. These people don't care about the children at the end of the day. They may act like they do, but... And sometimes, okay, maybe they do care about the children, but they're pushing ideologies, they're pushing methods which really do not care about children. Let's just put it that way. That was a fucking dumbass video. Anyways, I think the next video I will have out will probably be an off the POG episode because I've run out of videos to respond to. Maybe I'll respond to another Sydney Watson video. Maybe I'll respond to the erasure of woman. Oh no! Oh no! The erasure of woman. Is it because men are going into women's sports? Blah 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 blah. I don't know. Maybe I'll cover that. I'm not sure. Anyways, I'm gonna end it here because I have a movie to go to soon.